Welcome to A Sex Worker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm Parker Westwood. I'm your host, Parker Westwood, whatever order we want to say that in. And today I'm bringing you the latter half of my conversation with Master Joshua, a Pro Domme based out of New York. And it's juicy, like I promised. I did promise that it would have some juice. We cover so many things in this entire conversation, but in this last half, we talk about the difference between lifestyle BDSM and being a Pro Dom. We talk about the importance of communication. We talk about his new venture, helping people to journey into their true selves at the end of their life. And so many more things. Before we jump into the interview, I'd like to remind you all that you can support the show in a few different ways. You can keep listening. I love seeing those metrics go up. You can tell some of your friends, the ones who you think would be into this, and maybe some of the ones who you think wouldn't be, because some people surprise you. And leaving a glowing review is one way that more people will be shown this show. It's really great for the all-powerful algorithm, and I would greatly appreciate it. And then, of course, you can become a patron. I am working on getting some more patron-only content, so there will be exclusive interviews and some videos eventually. All of these things are in the works. Got some things coming at you. So if you are a patron of any level, you will have access to some really cool stuff coming down the road. There is one correction I need to put on this episode, and that's there's a moment where it sounds like Master Joshua is saying the word needy, but what he meant is meaty, as in like beef, meaty. You'll know what I'm talking about when it comes up. I should also put some trigger warnings on this episode, the same ones as last time for the most part. We do, the master-slave dynamic is mentioned. We don't really talk about it in depth this time around. And there's mention of addiction, specifically sex addiction. I think that's all of them, but as always, I'm open to correction. All right, without further ado, we're going to jump in to the last half of my interview with Master Joshua. Enjoy. There was one thing that we briefly talked about before, but I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about, like in your experience, what is the difference between lifestyle BDSM and then doing it professionally?
So this is a good one. So the lifestyle approach, right? When we talk about sexual orientation, I like to identify myself as a leather sexual, right? Because the
Very
leather
nice.
lifestyle, the way I define it, has certain pillars, right? Open communication, integrity, trust, respect, equality, right? These are factors that matter to me. And in the people I connect with, they have to matter to them too. Right. So before the way you look, before your gender, before your anything, if these characteristics don't match, we're probably not going to vibe. And that's okay, right? Because you have your reality, I have mine, and that's the way I go about it. Mm-hmm. It's spiritual for me. This lifestyle is very spiritual for me. That's what the lifestyle means to me now. It's grown over time, right? From understanding how to connect and exchange energy with people, sexual energy, and through emotional maturity and lifestyle maturity, I've come to this point. From the professional side, right, for me, it's about energy exchange. It's about heavily on energy exchange, and I try to get certain clients to a point of spiritual enlightenment. Right. And it's not like I'm going to beat you till you see God. Right.
Right.
Sometimes, right. That's through the repetitive motion in subspace and all that shit. Right. But
yes,
that aside, the connection that I want them to feel spiritually is through faith and trust. Right. That through the open and normalizing of the communication that we're going to have, They're going to see that no harm will come, that they will be seen and heard, and that this is a reality. Like, this can be real, right? To be safe, to be okay in your body, to engage with someone without expectations and intent beyond what was negotiated. It's very empowering, right? And it can be very life-changing for someone who carries shame with them to see that they're okay.
And that's a thing that people don't really understand about being a sub. Like, the experience of a sub is actually incredibly empowering.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely. I want to empower them with their own self-awareness, right? And I think if you can see that if you commit and invest into a relationship and it is returned positively and you are shown safety and security, I think you develop faith in yourself, and you start to really do a lot more work around it, right? You expect more from your relationships. You are more comfortable and confident in asking for what you want, because when you're in that room with me, right, you're doing something that most people will never have the nerve to do, and that's pursue themselves, right? So by the time you walk out that door, you can walk out with your head up high and know that you've effectively taken a step to changing your life, right? And
100%.
that self-confidence pays itself forward. So even on the professional side, what I'm trying to do is connect people with their own life, right? Like, I want to put you in your own driver's seat so that you can go from here and take it. So it's very bonding, right? It's very bonding. The relationships that I have with my clients are, rarely do I have transient clients because, well, now COVID, but two, because there's an investment that it takes from my end to sit and to talk with you. Right?
Yes.
You have to invest in this shit because my output is high, and I want to make sure that my energy is going into a place that is going to be moving you forward.
Absolutely.
Right? I had a session last week, and we had our follow-up call a couple of days ago, and not, this is my operation, right? I prefer to really connect and bond with them. I understand there are transactional relationships out there, and I've been in a few. That's not for me. So we had, he completed my intake form. We did our 2 interviews on Zoom. And 2 hours before he came for the session, he forwarded me an email he sent to a previous Dom about his likes and what he wants in a session. So I looked at it, and through our conversations, I kind of figured, like, it's not rocket science, right? Like, this is what you do, because believe it or not, you're not that different from everyone else, right? It's like,
right.
It's cool, right? Now, granted, he had a very unique kink, which I never was able to label it until he told me, and then I spoke about it with a former submissive of mine, and he affirmed it. And it was like one of those aha moments, right? So I totally learned something from him, but the formula of the scene isn't different, right? It's I know where we're at, right? So he sent it to me. I looked and I laughed, and I told my partner about it, and I said he's coming with thinking that this is going to be. He comes in, he gets stripped down X, Y, and Z, and then he gets at home. It's like, it doesn't work that way. So he comes in, and I made sure all the this was. I got to pat myself on the back for pulling off what I pulled off in this time frame that I was given. Right?
Yeah.
So when he left and we spoke about it, he says he was confused because he thought he was coming in to experience his checklist.
Right.
Thing. And what I did was, I'm not a fetish dispenser. Right? You don't put a quarter in me and I flog, spank, spank. Right?
That's something I used to say as a stripper. I was like, I'm not a gumball machine. You don't just put quarters in me. Yeah.
Right. So through our debriefing, I told him, I said, one, I don't know you. Right. So I don't know your body and I don't know how you respond. Right? I need to feel you. But two, you sent me a checklist, and I don't work off a list. I work off of body language.
Yeah.
Right. I work off of communication and experience. Right. And you're not paying me for 2 hours of my time. You're paying me for my 15 years of experience. Right.
Thank you. Yes.
And, and, we spoke through some of his confusion, right? Because he's a life coach, right? And the same way we spoke about not understanding or not about feelings being a new approach. That was the same thing for him, right? He's never been asked questions like that, so he doesn't know what to think, and his expectations, air quotes, were he was going to experience something transactional.
Right.
And it wasn't. It was hugely different. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I also, it makes me think of like when I tell people, I'm like, you're paying me for my time, really, and like the experience of being with me, rather than like these specific things that you think are going to happen during our time together. Like you're lucky that those things do happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
but you're also like paying for my company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're not objects,
No.
right? Even if the desire is to objectify or be objectified, let us agree on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, informed consent.
And right, it's like being addressed master by someone I don't even fucking know. Don't call me master, dude.
Yeah.
You don't know me.
Did I tell you to do that?
And I don't know you, right? Yeah. It's like that is something you have to earn from me too.
Yeah, this is a relationship, not just like a you deciding everything ship. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
The art of relationship building, I think, is one that I'm certainly like having to relearn. Like I didn't have very great models for it. Not saying that my parents weren't good at having a relationship or like people around me weren't. I just think especially as Americans, it's just we don't get to see healthy communication. It's not readily available to us, especially in a sexual nature.
Yeah, 100%. Like my parents, I think my sex addiction evolved from lack of affection and intimacy, right, from my parents, holding me, kissing me on the cheek, holding my hand. And I don't blame them, right, because their role models were their parents, right? And my grandmother worked 3 jobs and had 12 kids.
Yeah, right? There's no time for
for affection, right? So it's like, and I believe that's what plays a factor, right? It may or may not be wholly, but I also don't blame them for it.
Right. I could also go on an entire rant about how capitalism is designed to like keep affection away from us and like make it. I've probably already done this with you at one point, but yeah, there's like capitalism is designed to perpetuate shame and like keep us from the liberation that we seek in these kink relationships.
Yeah.
And short rant.
No, I agree 100%. It's like, so sex work I started 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. I don't remember. It was with a government worker who worked for, back then it was CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, out of here in JFK. And it was a gentleman who was high ranking. He was higher up in the chain of command. But he wanted to be humiliated and degraded and treated like a pig and stuff like that, like a dog, but not pup play, like degradation.
Right.
And he asked me if I would do a session with him. He was out in Long Island. I was here in the city. So, I threw some numbers together and I made my journey out there. And, safety call in place. And like, I was using all the stuff that I've learned in the lifestyle up until this point. And I get out there and we do the session. And at the end of the session, the look in his face, the change that it brought was, I joined the military and I went into law enforcement with the idea of hoping to be of service. I want to help facilitate change in the world, positive change in the world. And the military and law enforcement didn't provide that. From there, I went into executive protection and I did a lot of bodyguard work and security for families, royal families, and politicians.
Mm.
And that went on for a number of years. And while fulfilling to a degree, it wasn't service that I was looking to give.
Right.
When I wrapped up with this session with my first client, and the look I saw in his eyes, the light bulb went off. Like, this is it. Helping people find comfort within their own skin, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when I started with my professional domination. As time has progressed, I've molded what that means for me and what am I comfortable doing, what am I not comfortable doing, my approaches to the relationships, my inflexibility with my rate, right? And having standards and ethics around the work that I do, because we need it, right? One of the things that I noticed while working in bars in San Diego was objectification isn't nice and it feels horrible, right? And I don't want to feel that way again, right? So to make sure that in my journey into sex work, that I am not objectified, right? That I'm not seen as someone that something I'm being paid for,
right,
with my body, right? And again, unless it's negotiated,
right.
So I found sex work to be very empowering, spiritually, mentally and physically and all that stuff too. But spiritually, when I felt whole, helping someone heal with themselves and be okay with themselves.
Yeah.
Times progressed. I've learned more about myself. I learned what faith is in BDSM. I learned what it was through a photo, because I do photography. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I do photography as well. I'll send you my Instagram page.
Yes, please.
And a lot of it's around fetish photography, because I love capturing the energy of what is being seen, not just the picture, right? Not just, ooh, look at me, I'm wearing stuff, but there's an energy in it, in that exchange, that I love capturing. You'll see, I love it.
Oh, right? I'm so excited.
So I learned faith through a photo that I took of my then male submissive, and he was in a submissive pose, and I'm looking at him, and I said, man, this is what believing in a purpose greater than your own looks like. And when I said that, I felt, because he will do he even to today, he will do as I say without question. That dynamic fell apart because he wasn't doing what he needed to do for himself.
Right. And
he wasn't fucking listening to me. Jim, I'm telling you this, not because I want you to do it or because I'm asking you to do it, because you're going to do it. Right? It's like, you need to do this, and it's not for me, it's for you. Right. So anyway, so I sat there and I was like, so this is what it means to have faith in a power greater than yourself. Because the way he looked at me and the responsibility I had in his life was very meaty. And I said, well, shit. So this is what people who are religious feel and trust in their higher power. So I was able to take the relation and understanding of what that feeling was. And I asked myself, well, what do I believe in? Right? And I sat there, and this was a 5-minute process. I said, well, I believe in karma, right? That if I do good, good will return. If I do bad, bad will return. And I live that way. I live to serve this power of karma, right, through my actions. And in that moment, I was able to understand my role and what faith means to me in living for a purpose greater than yourself, right? So I learned faith in this lifestyle. I've learned integrity, what it means, and how hard and how difficult it is to change your lifestyle, to grow, and to live in a responsible and emotionally mature way, right? But it takes work, right? If this was easy, this world would have peace, right? But it's not. It's about money, right? And like you said, right, the capitalism, right, would keep us entertained with our electronics and our sports and the shit that doesn't matter, so that we can keep feeding the monster.
Absolutely.
The spirituality that I learned through this also integrating plant-based medicine for my own journey.
Right.
Right, psilocybin, marijuana, MDMA, different forms of therapy and medicine to help connect with those in my life. There's a lot of therapeutic approaches to the practices in this lifestyle, right?
Oh, absolutely.
When speaking about our past, right? Imagine having a relationship so strong that you can start tackling childhood or just life trauma, right? In a space, right? Not to address it and say, this happened to me and this is why I'm the way I am, right? That's just sitting in it, right? When you can sit with someone and say, this happened to me, help me understand why and how to move through it, right? And oftentimes the why isn't your fault, right? So it's like, help me understand why it's not my fault, and work. It's when we move past the romanticizing of what BDSM is and the sexualization of what it is, and we look at the foundations of how these relationships are built. That's the meat and potatoes, right? It's not the sex. It's not the physical part. It's the communication to get to the physical part.
Yeah, I agree. And as a survivor myself, it's like it when you're talking about trauma and like when someone's like, this happened to me, and then there's the why of it, and usually it's not your fault. And then at least for me, I had to confront my relationship with control and like not having any and then having some, and like really what it feels like to take responsibility for what I have and what is mine and my own body, but also recognize like when things are out of my control,
Yeah.
and just like really really understanding where I begin and where I end. And so I think like that's one of the most beautiful parts of a relationship like that, is that you get like I've gotten to work with people on stuff like that, and it's just like such a like whole body good feel every time. It's an honor, really.
Yeah. Over time, and this is almost to where I'm at today. Over time, my work through BDSM, which I'm working on rephrasing it for my next venture to NTSB, which is non-traditional sexual behavior, so that it's more palatable for those who are afraid of the whips and chains, right? Because it's like just the name of it. Oh my God, BDSM, you must like X, Y, and Z. It's like slow down there, high speed.
Right.
Nothing to do with that, right? So NTSB is the phrase that I'm looking to start working with to help remove, again, the stigma of what BDSM and the leather lifestyle is. So through this progression, right, I've like you said, we've helped people heal, grow, understand, learn, and with my partners, Kat, who deals in addiction and recovery, Shui, who is a licensed clinical psychologist, and we're opening the Sanctuary for Spiritual Development and Consciousness Expansion. And those are therapy and counseling led services, right, to range from addiction, recovery, mental health, trauma-based recovery, NTSB. And what I'm focusing on personally to wrap in with faith is connecting with people that are in advanced age or advanced stages of illness, to help mend their spirits, their being, relationships that they want to reconnect with before passing. Because I've had clients who have been diagnosed with medical conditions or advanced age that wanted to feel beautiful again, or to be seen, right? I have a mentor who started off as a client, he's an older gentleman and he's never come out the closet, right? And I would hate for him to pass without having to be able to speak out his truth to at least his friends or his peers.
Absolutely.
Right? Family, I can understand not, right? Because that's just a house that he can't get burned down.
Right.
But to create an environment where he can openly say, I'm a gay man.
To someone, right?
To someone, right?
Yeah.
I get goosebumps.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I want it's it's bittersweet, right? Because how many people experience that day in and day
Right.
out, right? That they will die without being able to express that. It breaks my heart. So
Yeah.
I want to focus on taking what I've learned through this journey and start focusing it on people, on helping people heal. I feel it because when I've connected with clients like this in the past,
Mm-hmm.
through some personal journeys with the assistance of psilocybin, right? And experiences with friends who are mediums and shit that they've said, and I witnessed that have where I stand right now. I believe that afterlife is just transitional
Yeah.
and death isn't finite,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't believe that. Like where I'm at now, absolutely not. So to be able to speak with people who are transitioning, right, to help alleviate some of that anxiety, I can share my stories with them and sit and hear their stories
Mm-hmm.
and help them again be seen and heard for who they are before moving on. Um, this started from me going to visit a friend who had a newborn baby that I was taking pictures of,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a dog of 15 years who I've known since he was a puppy. He was wearing a diaper and he's going blind and he's deaf, and he didn't
Mm.
hear me when I came in. And he was sitting on the couch and I sat next to him and he smelled me and he woke up, right? It woke him up. And I sat with him and I cried for a few minutes because
Oh.
he's an old puppy now, right? And they have a new puppy, right? Who's 6 months old, so he's a fucking monster and he's all energy. Max not,
Yes.
right? So I sit down with him and I talk to him and I tell him, I said, "Don't worry, Max. You've had a wonderful life. You've helped Alex." And I was gushing to him, and I said to him, "I will see you on the other side. Right?
Mm.
That the next step isn't this isn't the end."
Yeah.
And it stuck with me for a few hours. Like he ended up getting up and looking for me throughout the day, throughout the house, and
Mm.
um, on the train ride back home is when I started talking to Kat about how I felt. I said, it's heartbreaking, it's sad, but I enjoy sitting in the sadness because it showed me that I love, right? That I loved him, that's my boy, right?
Yeah.
And there was a relationship and an experience that I had that brought me joy. So I will sit with this sadness and I will appreciate it because it reflects what I felt throughout this entire experience with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then that had me thinking as I'm sitting here for hours at work, I'm like, I start connecting the dots. I was visiting my parents in September, and because in September I came to the conclusion that there will be no better time. Right, my parents
Yeah.
are in their 70s. Right, if COVID gets them, right,
Right. Yeah.
I won't be able to see them, and
Yeah.
then that'll be that. Right. So I took the trip down, and I recorded messages for all the grandchildren individually with them, should they pass and not be able
Mm-hmm.
to see them. It was so gut wrenching and scary and sad that to sit there and think about this with my parents before, but it's like it's necessary, right? And
Yeah.
then I've reflected on the clients that I've had, and it all started to point in this direction of end of life doula slash shadow work, right? To help
Absolutely.
heal before passing. Like that's where all of this has pointed me today, and with high and heavy thanks to my BDSM journey that
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to get to this point and understand that my point of service is for those who are transitioning to something different.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. What's the name of your new venture again?
It's a sanctuary for spiritual development and consciousness expansion. It'll be ssdce.org. We're finalizing the verbiage for the website because there's a lot of information that goes into this stuff.
I 100% believe it.
And I'll be more than happy to share it with you once we have it up and running. I'll send it your way so you can check it out.
Yeah, and I'll link it to this episode.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course, of course. Well, um we skipped a day in the life of, and I don't want to forget. So if you're able and willing to like give us a well-rounded idea of like what a day in the life of Master Joshua looks like.
So I'm actually pretty boring. Uh,
That's perfect.
no, no, right? People think it's some fabulous, it's some like, no, 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 no. It's all kidding aside. A year ago, right, I was hosting events, 2 events a month. I was doing maybe 4 or 5 sessions a month, a lot of education, a lot of networking, a lot of socializing around the lifestyle. My professional and my income was based almost strictly around the lifestyle. I had stopped taking security contracts maybe about 3 or 4 years ago and doing professional domination full time. Uh, COVID hit in March, everything stopped, right? So it's like everything stopped. And
Yeah.
it had been a rough couple months. Luckily, things worked out and money kept coming in from different areas, and we were able to stay up to date with where we're at. In October, I ended up having to take a contract that became available, right? Because I needed supplemental income.
Yeah.
And the work that I was doing just wasn't working for the environment. Like people aren't coming out for sessions during COVID. And I'm also certainly not taking certain clients, right? If you're not able to meet a threshold for me to keep me and the people I know safe,
Yep.
we just can't work together, right? So I picked up the work in October, and I started doing a lot more introspective work through plant-based medicine uh, earlier this year. And through that introspection, through that personal work, through the change, the economic change, societal change around everything going on, they just changed the schedule that I was working and took half my time away because, believe it or not, because Biden got elected, right? There's no more
Wow.
riots, so we don't need any more security, right? So
Right.
it's like
Right.
it's but it's okay, right? Because it allows me to focus on the next step, right? I
Yeah.
asked the universe to give me time to help me,
Hmm.
and sometimes again, I don't ask them to do it easy, right? So what
Yeah.
does the universe do? Takes away half my hours and gives me the time I need to focus on what my next steps are,
The
right? So
universe
now,
is funny that way, isn't it?
right now, I have to swim again, right? So, but I'm cool with it. So, so now, starting this month, right, I'm down to working 10 days a week, and I'm trying to catch up on previous engagements or connections that I've committed to that I've had to postpone throughout the year. Time away with one of the people I'm involved with. So we're going to a cabin next week,
Oh,
the
yes.
week after, right? I was looking into Oregon because we're hoping to for the sanctuary to be a destination, preferably in a city that's supportive of the medicine that we use for some of our therapies, that we
Yes.
want to use for some of our therapies, right? So we were supposed to go to Oregon in February. That fell through because the numbers are going up.
Hmm.
And for these first few weeks of time off, I'm playing catch up, reconnecting with relationships, either mobile or in person, and relationships meaning people that I'm intimate with that I haven't been able to spend enough time with. Right? It's I'm not going out there and socializing on different levels and stuff like that. It's
Right.
just being more available for the people in my life. I'm hugely into VR gaming.
Mm.
It's a habit I just picked back up. It's a great stress relief, right?
It is.
It helps me take my mind off of my work because where I'm at now, my life is my work. And if I can't separate it, I end up going down this rabbit hole and I'm not able to work at my maximum capacity. Right? I just
Yeah.
end up working at a burned out 50, 60, 70%. And that's not enough.
Yeah. Not
Right.
everything is about profit. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right. I have to learn what rest means, right? I
Yeah.
had appendicitis in May, and I
Wow.
had to go have it removed, right? And
Yeah.
that shit was no joke, right? Like, have you ever had food poisoning?
I have. Yeah.
That's death, right? I
Uh-huh.
thought I had it one time. I used to use it to call in sick when I worked for the government. Food poisoning, food poisoning, food poisoning, until I really got that shit. And when I got it, that was the last thing. I'd call in dead before I would call in food poisoning because that shit was horrible.
Yes.
Right? And May, I thought I had food poisoning, and I'm like, "Fuck, this is bad. Let me wait it out." One day turned into two. and it got worse. I went into the hospital and they said, it's really fucked up. Summarizing, it's really fucked up and it's got to go. So
Wow.
in that time, right, they removed the appendix and they gave me oxy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I've been a proponent for medicinal marijuana since day one.
Yeah.
On oxy, I was hearing voices.
Oh my God.
I was hating life. I was depressed. I wanted everything dark. I didn't have any motivation to work. Just leave me alone so I can be here miserable and quote unquote heal from my surgery.
Yeah.
And that lasted for about 2.5 days. I had my re-up, my marijuana re-up, and I smoked. And within 60 seconds, the pain dissipated and everything changed. 60 seconds.
Oh my God.
I went from a proponent to an advocate
Right.
in just that amount of time,
And
because in that moment, I
oxy
realized
is so addictive. It's so addictive, and marijuana is not.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I was getting sick. I couldn't keep it down. I was throwing up. It was horrible. And I'm supposed to be here healing. And the medicine, the pain relief medicine is worse than the healing symptoms.
Right.
Right? It's like unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I'm a huge proponent for plant-based medicine, and because of that experience, right? So
Mm-hmm.
today, there's no kink. There's not much kink going on. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I mean, I see my slave twice a week. That's not true. But the social aspect of my kink journey isn't present right now. When I do get to experience my bottom side or my submissive side as I'm doing it currently,
Mm-hmm.
it is heavy and it is nasty and it is the things that I want it to be, as best as I can experience them where I'm at with myself now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I only expect it to get better. And I only expect it to get livelier. Maybe next time we video chat, I'll have a big collar tattoo. I remember the first time I saw that.
Yes.
I was a teenager, and it was public access TV, and I think it was the Robin Bird show, and she had a male dancer, and he had this big black collar tattoo on his neck, and I was like, I fucking want one of those. So badass, right?
It's so good. Neck tattoos are so sexy to begin with. Yes. That's so great. Yeah, I think that's one question that I'm like, I don't even know if I should have this in here anymore, just because our lives have changed so much since COVID hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where I wish I look forward to my day in the life of, with the progression of the work and SSDCE.
Yes.
I've for years and years, right? I've never been the type to sit back and think about where do I want to be in X amount of years, or how do I visualize my life in 5 years, or what are goals, or what are this, or what are that. Life never came into focus for me like that, right? Mm-hmm. I never had plans or projections of grandeur, right? Because it's like, I didn't live that way.
Yeah.
Until I started getting an understanding of what all of this meant for me. And to see into the future, right, is a feeling that I started getting, right, of tasting what reality will be, as opposed to trying to visualize what I want. I can close my eyes and see what's going to pass, right? And in that, what I want my life to be is, again, in this destination for individuals where they can walk through the door, and my life starts with me waking up, having breakfast, meeting people that are coming into our sanctuary, connecting with those that are already present, and ushering those forward that are on their way out in a way that is communal, almost village-like, right? That everyone knows everyone by their first names, and family, right? Yeah. That saying of strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. It's cheesy, but I want that, right? I want that feeling, right? Because we deserve it. Yeah. If we earn it, we deserve it.
Yeah, it's a moment of we have to commit to our community in order to like receive that sort of place among it.
It's done through service. Like, I don't host events to make money. right? You don't get rich in this lifestyle doing this stuff, right? I do it to create a space for people to have their journey,
Yeah.
right? And money has to be a part of it because there's things to be paid, but you're not getting rich off of hosting events,
No.
right? You're creating a space for people to explore.
Yeah. Which is so important and part of the trust building, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I have some rapid fire questions for you if you're ready.
Absolutely.
Okay. Cool. So there's like three that are just like quick and dirty, and then we get into like the more interesting ones. Vanilla or chocolate?
Vanilla.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes, unless it's chicken and waffles.
It's a fair answer. Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z?
Uh, Dragon Ball Z because they fight.
Like actual fighting, yes.
Like actual fighting.
Yeah. Favorite place you've ever been?
There's a place called Easton Mountain in upstate New York, about an hour out of Albany, which has become my second home, which is the first place I felt home.
Wow.
It's a venue created by a gay male by the name of John Stasio, who has become a mentor and a guide to me, a brother of sorts. And the space he's created is a retreat for those who are looking for peace, like along the same lines of the sanctuary idea. I've developed that because of my experience through Easton Mountain. And it's a place for healing. I've traveled and stuff, but I've never felt home.
Mm-hmm.
And home is the most beautiful place. And when I turn that road onto Easton Mountain, I get that feeling of going home. That is the most beautiful place to me.
That's a wonderful answer. Now I'm like internally asking myself, like, where do I feel at home?
It's hard, right? It's like it's not. I've lived in plenty of places, and even in the relationships I've been in, a lot of it's always felt, this is where I'm at presently.
Yeah.
This is where I'm at. I'm not home, but this is where I'm at.
Yeah. I think that's very common. I think that was one of the perplexing things about like leaving my parents' home, going to college, coming back for a visit and being like, oh, this isn't home anymore. And neither is the place that I'm at now. Yeah, it's a very disorienting thing to confront.
Like, speaking of visiting parents, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, my parents found out about my work. Because I've never hidden it, and I've always spoken about it, but I don't speak about it in hard terms. Like BDSM, pro domination, male mistress,
Right.
things
Yes.
that will turn people away, right? So I've always kept it very user friendly. And I think they heard an interpretation of what I do through my older brother, who I cut ties with years ago because he's a homophobe and a racist, and he's a cop. So imagine that, right?
Right. Surprise.
So when I was down there for Fetish Factory, this was Memorial Day weekend, it has to be 3 years ago. I called them and I said, hey, I'm down here. Do you want me to come by? And they took a pass on it. And they've never done that, ever done that. And it was heartbreaking, right? Because I've never had to deal with, thankfully, I've never had to deal with what a lot of alternative, air quotes, lifestyle people have had to deal with when engaging with their parents growing up. And to feel that was very painful, right? So I wrote them off, like I wrote my brother off for judging me because of how I live my life, right? And it was sad, and it was scary. It was sad. It wasn't scary, and I was angry, right? Because it's like, fucking talk to me about the work that I do, and let me tell you the important role that it plays for the people that I connect with. Right. So I didn't speak to them, and they didn't speak to me for a while. And my sister was the one who talked me into reconnecting with them while they were visiting here in New York. And they were here for a couple of days. And I called them and I said, hey, let's meet up for lunch. And I went with Kat, my partner, and we sat. And it was good to reconnect with them because I felt that they missed me. Right.
Yeah.
Seeing that their emotions trumped their misinformation,
Yes.
opened the door for us to communicate again. And when I met and I laid it all down for them, this is what I do. I also talked to my mom how I found faith through this.
Yeah.
Right. And I made it in terms, and I brought it up in terms that they can relate and understand with, not just, well, this is who I am, take it or leave it, right? Because whether we like it or not, yes, the internet's there and people can educate themselves, but it doesn't work that way all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes people need things interpreted so that they can understand them better. And they can digest it or just remove the misinformation. Oh, that's not what I thought, and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Right?
but you can't get there until they're willing and open to even approach the subject.
Even approach it.
Yep.
Absolutely. My kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I have good relationships with. One of them I don't, right? My oldest with her mom, and it's the whole story. But through our last communication, she became very disrespectful and judgmental in the work that I do and the person that I am.
Mm.
She pointed out my desire to express myself in more feminine gear.
Mm-hmm.
It was some painful shit to hear repeated at you from someone who is judging you, whose blood, right, who's your child, who isn't taking a moment to just listen.
Yeah.
Right? Just listen. Just hear what I have to say, right? Because I'm not the person you think I am.
Right.
But you're leading with your emotions and you're leading with misinformation. Just, we can all do good if we stopped for a moment and shut our mouth and opened our ears.
Yeah. And on it, formed our own opinions rather than ascribe to these preconceived notions and stereotypes. Yeah.
And this world would be a better place, right? If we could just take a breather, just take a second.
Yeah. I love that. So I'm terrible at the rapid fire questions. I up to this point, I've been like, wow, people are really bad at rapid fire questions. And I think it's just me. So that's good to know. The next question is a book from your mandatory reading list.
Books, words. So dyslexia has always been a pain in the ass for me, right? And the ability to sit and concentrate on a book is tough.
Yes.
Also, if I'm not caught within the first chapter, I'll maybe give a book a chapter.
Yeah.
But it has to catch me. Like if it doesn't catch me, it's hard for me to stick to it. World War Z. Just kidding. That's a tough one for me because there's a lot of good literature out there. I end up going back to SM 101 by Jay Wiseman because it's a fantastic foundation on relationship development and one's personal journey. I mean, there's a ton of stuff out there, but this one in particular, he addresses a lot that's palatable and digestible for everyone reading it.
Excellent.
And he highlights a lot of important factors in personal and relationship development that I think people often overlook.
Awesome. I'll have to check that one out. I haven't heard of that one yet. Secret talent. I know you've got one.
Yeah. Secret talent. I can do this with my tongue.
Oh my God, you can. It's the 3-leaf clover thing. That's amazing.
Never heard it described that way. Yeah.
That's skill.
That's one. That's one. A lot of people don't know about that.
I'm honored to have bared witness.
To witness.
Yes. Okay, a song, a musical artist, or an album that you're currently obsessed with?
So an album that I've been obsessed with for a while is Marilyn Manson's second to last album. And I'll tell you the name of it because I'm horrible with names. Pale Emperor, is it called? I think it's called the Pale Emperor. If you've not heard it, the reason why I like it is because it's not hardcore metal, and it has, the Pale Emperor came out in 2015.
Okay.
And it's got a very jazzy flow to it. right? And
Interesting.
I can do a scene, I can do a session from beginning to end of that album, and it dictates a beautiful pace that you can interpret to whatever you're feeling, right? So, like, I like to play blues and jazz during my parties
Mm-hmm.
because it's sensual, but it's powerful, right? And you can express different ranges of emotion through the tempo that the track has.
Yes.
Hands down, if you've not played the blues or jazz, take a moment and find a channel like BBQ Blues on Pandora is one that I use all the time, and it's so smooth
Yeah.
and sexy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can change your own flow to the music because it's like the music is universal,
Yeah.
right? If you zone, plus you're also zoning out, right? You're not listening to the words, you're not listening to the lyrics, you're feeling it. And so as that tempo builds and as the percussion picks up, I can start getting goosebumps and breaking a sweat thinking about
I'm actually in goosebumps right now. Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have not listened, admittedly, I've not listened to that Marilyn Manson album, so now I shall.
Give it a shot. Give
Hell
it a
yeah.
shot. I swear by it.
Excellent.
If
Okay.
I want to impress a submissive, I will play that because that puts me in a space
Mm.
of like it's like that's now you have me thinking about it. Yeah, that it's such a sexy album.
I'm so excited.
Check it out and listen to it, and let me know what you think. If you can get an opportunity to play to it,
Uh-huh.
try it and let me know how what you think about
I will. I will. Okay. Finish this sentence. Good sex is.
it. And I'm going to say raw, and not in the sense of lack of protection. By
Mhm.
all means, use your barriers, use whatever you need to stay safe. But sex, when everything is spoken and pursued, right, and the inhibitions are put aside, and you can be your
Yes.
primal self.
Mhm.
Oh, fuck. I jerk off more to thoughts of uninhibited play than
Yes.
any porn that I could put up on a website, on
100%.
any website, easily. I can, oh my God, incredible,
Yeah.
right? It's like, because it's real. Overall, right? Our
Mhm.
relationships, we manage people's emotions, right? The people
Mhm.
we're with. I don't want to upset them, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to upset them, so I'm going to do that, right? I think or I feel this way and I know it triggers them, so I'll avoid it, right?
Right.
That
Relational
specific,
chess. Yes.
right? So that's one on one. Now add polyamory to that shit, right? You fucking choke on the headaches from it.
Yes.
So what I notice, and what we all do, not everyone, but a lot of people do, especially in the beginning, is we're managing ourselves and the relationships so we don't step on anyone else's toes,
Yeah.
right? So no one gets upset because I express emotion for her in front of this one, and then this one feels without, and then it's like it's a fucking headache,
Yes.
right? So through a mushroom, a psilocybin-based experience that I did with my slave, my partner was sitting for us, right, to make sure that things went safer. Right now, granted, if you don't have an extensive history in psilocybin or magic mushrooms, they are the least addictive and they are not recreational. These are for personal journey, introspection, and growth. This is my professional opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and I will put that shit on the record, right? So,
Yes.
uh, when we were there, and I don't role play. Role play comes very hard for me, right? I just don't have the knack for it.
Mm-hmm.
She's Israeli, so and our power exchange. She has to feel physically submissive in order to be submissive. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to show you I'm dominant by dominating you physically.
Yeah.
Right. So if I say stay down, she's not going to, and it's not brat behavior, right?
Right.
Because I don't do brats. Brats and I, oil and water, like fucking stay away from me because this is not a game,
Yeah.
right? But she likes to have her submission earned,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she doesn't push back often. Only when sometimes when we play. Now that I'm thinking about it, she's a fucking brat. Yeah, right. So we come out of our peak, and now we're sitting with each other and we're talking, and my focus goes on to her, and cat is just a silent observer, right? You're just here to witness and make sure we don't die, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when engaging in plant-based medicine, specifically psilocybin, a lot of times the fear and inhibitions are removed from your current state. So you can converse more openly, you can express more openly without the fear of rejection or judgment or what have you. So my slave and I get into a power exchange, a role play of uh, secret agent and interrogator.
Oh, yes.
For the record, I have my hands choking, right? So we're assuming a interrogation play,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in my mind, I allowed us to be who we were, regardless of who was present, 100%. And it went from beginning to end, and the things we said and the way we behaved was very unfiltered. And it felt fulfilling to me
Yeah.
and fulfilling to my slave. And I had no regard or concern for how the primary was going to feel, because in that moment, what I realized is when I throttle my expression, I'm robbing from everyone.
Yes.
Right? It does my slave no justice if I can't express to her how important she is to me,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, physically, intimately, psychologically. Like for myself to feel as a whole person, I have to be able to express openly. Right now, I'm not doing disrespectful shit. I'm not groping one to piss off the other or anything like that. Right? I keep awareness of that, but the conversations around the ability to express ourselves fully, it gave me the platform to address it.
Yeah.
So with the plant-based medicine showing me what is potential now through my expression and my engagement with my slave, which the first time role playing on that level was extremely fulfilling, and it really opened up doors to who we are in our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the ability to not throttle ourselves in our relationships, right? But you can't just pull the band-aid off either, right? You have to talk through this shit.
Yeah.
Expressing what is happening, how you feel about it happening, like jealousy, right? Poly jealousy. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like a non-factor, right? It's an everyday factor. It's a very real
Absolutely.
factor, right? And it's normal, right? Until we converse about it and normalize the conversations around the relationships. It's all about this entire stuff is about communication.
Yes. I personally identify as poly, and I'm currently not in any relation. Well, that's not entirely true. I just started dating again, but I I have a really hard time being polyamorous because it takes a commitment to all parties involved, and sometimes like only seeing one person can just be easier. Um, yeah, but I think poly takes a lot of communication with all parties involved, and it's a beautiful thing because communication is inherently beautiful, and being able to negotiate and find like actually express where everyone is at and find this like common ground, um,
Yeah.
is really a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work, but the payoff is incredible, right?
Yes.
So the relationship now where we're able to get raw and primal with each other, right,
Mm-hmm.
didn't happen overnight, right? People like I used to be envious of the guys that would have all this wild and crazy sex, right? Because the way they attained it, however it was, it seemed cool, right? But it was also transient, right? It was different people, and there was always something negative coming out from the engagements, right? Feelings or hurt or whatever. So I wasn't envious about that part.
Yeah.
And, I experienced raw, primal type of sex, but it didn't come until the last year or so, where the last last year or so, where after all the investment, after all the experiencing, journeying, and communicating, we were able to build the trust in the relationship so that the sex is on that level,
Right.
right? Because it's attainable, right?
Mm-hmm.
People think like when people say, oh, you can do anything you put your mind to it. Yeah, but define that, right? That's such a generic phrase, right? Just
Right.
put your
Also,
mind to it.
like, there's a time factor. Like, it's not gonna, you don't put your mind to it and then the next moment you have it. That's not how it
Right?
works.
It's like this stuff works by you can do anything you put your mind to means you can do anything you put your mind to that you're willing to do the work for.
100%. Discipline. So
Now,
important.
discipline, right? We have to create our reality,
Hmm.
and that takes sacrifice, right? We were in a documentary that recorded. I'm hoping it turns out to be real big, because it speaks on love languages across the world, right? And the people
Mm,
that came to us when they were in New York, we were referred to them, and they sat with us, and people misconceptions, BDSM, slave, and you have to do what he says, and yada yada, all that nonsense. So we
hmm.
spoke through all of that, and it's so cliche and so generic. But the last question that they ask is, define love in one word, right? And I sat there and I thought about it, and I came back with sacrifice, right? Of course,
Right.
but you sacrifice a lot
Yeah.
when you are invested in something greater than yourself, and it's
Hmm.
time, and it's mostly time. Like that's the biggest thing you sacrifice
Yeah,
is time, because that's the most valuable thing we have,
it's true.
right? And we've sacrificed a lot of time in working through our problems and working through our hiccups so that we can get to a place that isn't just manageable but content. People aren't guaranteed happiness,
Mm-mm.
right? No one owes you happiness, right?
Nope.
That's just not reality. Yeah, but you earn it, right? You can work for it, and you can work for moments of happiness,
Yeah.
right? It's not sustainable, but it's achievable in moments.
Yeah. I love that we're still in the rapid fire questions. I'm just like, I'm so bad at this. Yeah, I'm just like, this will probably have to be 2 episodes. And I'm not mad about that. It's so
No,
good.
it's all
It's
good.
so perfect. Um, okay, there's 2 more. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
I would say telling the future,
It's a good one. Yep.
right? One of my biggest things that I still struggle with is accepting my presence,
Mm,
right? The inability of knowing what comes next is so frustrating and scary. Frustrating, right?
mm-hmm.
Because if I knew what I had to do next, I would do it.
Yep.
It's simple, right? If I don't know, I feel like I'm sitting on my hands and I'm wasting time. And that is the worst feeling I can have, because then I get anxious and I become irritable and shit just gets bad, right?
Yep.
Learning to sit and be present, super hard. So if I could tell the future, right, it could relieve some of it. Maybe, I don't even know, right? Because what if the future's bad? Now I'm looking forward to bad shit, right?
Oh my God, I love that. As a fellow person who like doesn't know how to relax or take a nap, like I relate to you on that level.
Yeah. So telling the future, I think.
Yeah, that's great. And then what is something simple that brings you joy?
So I'm going to say masturbation,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just the fact of just jerking off, right? There's a level of stress release, right? And it's not the orgasm, it's the pressure that is released after the orgasm
Mm-hmm.
that is simple, right? I I'm the type that I have sex to de-escalate. I have sex to decompress.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's tough because if you believe in sex addiction, I go back to the if you believe, because some people don't.
Right.
It's something natural. How do you abstain or pull back some from something that's natural, right? And
Yeah.
it's hard. It's not easy,
No.
right?
It's
Because
like having a eating disorder. You have to cultivate a relationship with food. Yeah.
yeah, right. So part of my part of my daily ritual is, if I work overnights and I get off of work, the first thing I do is go home, fuck, and eat breakfast. Right. And
Yes.
she knows that. Like, she's dressed at 7 in the morning when I get home in whatever she's gonna surprise me in, because that's what helps me turn off the switches.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
It's it's a it's a function that everyone I've been engaged with understands.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If I don't, it's like a person that doesn't have coffee in the morning, right? Or their ritual in the morning to start off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Even if I don't even have to have sex. Like, let me just touch you, right? Let me just get. If I can start off that way, I will start off on the right foot, and I will be proactive. But it's tough, right? Because it's like it has a power over me too.
Yep.
It's simple, right? But it's not easy to manage. It's not. It's something that because I said this morning, this morning, I said, listen, I just need to put a chastity on myself, right? Because who knows where that energy can go,
right?
As well, right? It's like there's, so it brings me joy, but I think there's a price that I pay with it too.
And that goes for both, like sex with another person and masturbation.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just easier, right? So just to rub one out and to go right to bed, right?
100%. Yes.
Don't even touch me. Clean up because now
I'm giving myself a boost of serotonin here, and we are going to go on with our day. Yes.
Yeah.
I also think with just to like elaborate on masturbation for a moment, I think there is something really truly beautiful about having that moment with yourself and like understanding your body, especially as a woman who's like not taught anything about my body at all.
Yeah, for sure.
And that brings us to the close of my interrogation. This has been so magical, and I just want to thank you for being so willing to get vulnerable with me. This was a really amazing conversation.
I really appreciated the time and the ability to speak it through, right? As I had mentioned earlier, some of it is my first time speaking through it. These are conversations I've had in the past that I haven't been able to put the words to it as I have been with you tonight. So I'm thankful for that. And for the platform, hopefully we can connect with people out there who are looking to hear these same words, just to know that they're walking their path, right? And that they aren't alone doing this. Because the more we get to know ourselves and the more we get to define what our human life experience is, the more isolating it can be, right? Because who shares this with us, right? It's really hard to find others who are on the same wavelength as some of us can be at.
Agreed. Let's eliminate shame and liberate the people.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, please. The pleasure's all mine, and thank you again. And let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
All right, have a good night.
There you go, folks. That is the actual conclusion of my interview with Master Joshua. We have indeed been in touch, and I'm sure there will be another episode with Master Joshua on the horizon, or at least something for patrons of Patreon. That one. This was such a fantastic interview, and I really do believe that shame is the enemy of freedom. Like, we cannot be free if we hold on to shame and continue to shame each other. So, let's shake that shit off, huh? If only it were that easy. I mentioned in the first episode, the preamble to the first episode, if you will, that this was recorded a long time ago, like months ago. So the website to Master Joshua's new venture is actually up and running, and they've made a lot of progress on the Sanctuary for Spiritual Development and Consciousness Expansion. So check out that website. Some really cool projects, really great people working on it. Yeah. I am sitting here in my new podcasting closet, which is not entirely finished, but it feels really good to be. And that's my cat. She would like to say hello, because there's no door to this place yet. There will be, because of that. But I'm in my new podcasting closet, and it feels really, really good to be in this space and to be creating content for you all. Finally, now that I've moved and I am putting together the podcast studio closet. Uh, okay, this is where I'm supposed to share a space thing with you. Um, as you're traipsing across the galaxy, if you choose to stop at an intergalactic rest stop, just remember, don't eat the ham and cheese sandwiches. Trust me. Nanu nanu, motherfuckers. Love ya. Felix, I can hear you purring. You can't stay here.